Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out with another of my favorite people to pick the minds of, none other than Russ Anber out in Poland. How you doing, Russ?
I'm good, brother. How are you, Ayman? Long time no speak.
Long time no speak indeed, and all the better
Yeah.
for speaking to you. You put a smile on my face, and good to see you doing well
Yeah.
and healthy.
Well, thank you. That means still with my feet on the right side of the grass and fat, so that's okay. There we go. Yes, indeed.
Yes, a lot to be thankful for. Let's start with your current location. You're in Poland. That can only mean one thing. You're there embedded in camp for Team Usyk, who are taking on Daniel Dubois towards the end of the month. Can you tell me about Usyk's spirits in an event which, look, for boxing fans, they might not look into too much on Dubois' side, but for Usyk, this is coming right near to the Ukrainian Independence Day. It's a real homecoming affair for him, away from home, or as close to home as he can be.
Yeah, but I think what I'll do, although this won't be original because I said this on an interview earlier this week on Sky Sports, but I'll tell you the same thing. I figured since every fighter in the history of boxing, especially in this new modern era of interviews and Zoom calls and social media, every fighter in the history has said before their fight, camp is great, wonderful, I've had a great camp, and then after the fight you hear, I had this wrong. So I'm going to start off by saying, it's been a terrible camp. The sparring partners are pounding Usyk from pillar to post. I don't know what the hell he's going to do once he gets in there with Dubois. So we'll go with that one. Okay. That's going to be what we're going with, for this interview.
A change of tact, a change of stance there. That's an interesting one. I wonder what you make of the change in trainer for Daniel Dubois, switching from Shane McGuigan, who's very much revered here in the UK, to now Don Charles, who was the former trainer, or at least the trainer of Derek Chisora, when for a lot of people, especially at heavyweight, said that Derek Chisora gave Usyk his toughest test to date.
Well, has anybody ever been in an easy fight with Derek Chisora? Save maybe the last Fury fight, which was kind of one-sided. Has anybody ever really been in an easy fight against Derek Chisora? I'm asking you. Now I'm doing the interviewing here. You tell me. You're the British boxing expert. You tell me. Has anybody been in an easy fight?
Yeah, I mean, there would be a couple of circumstances where people would say Derek Chisora hasn't given his best account in fights. I'd say the other two Fury fights come to mind as well, where Derek hasn't performed. But look, that's probably to do with the greatness of Fury, yeah,
and his size. Doesn't adapt. To that could always play a factor in it. But I mean, does it matter? Does it matter? If I'm not mistaken, I believe. I want to make sure I'm right about this, but I believe Don, who I respect very much, and I'll get back to your original question in a second, was in the corner of, I want to say Chisora, but I'm not sure, when he fought Malik Scott. Am I mistaken?
I believe he was, yeah.
That was the fight where the referee counted 9 and out on Malik Scott, and Malik was ahead on points. Is that the fight? Am I right about that?
I believe so. Yes.
Back a few years.
Yeah.
So I was in Malik's corner that night. So it's great to have a great cornerman. I know Don has a lot of experience. I think that's wonderful. The important thing in any relationship with a fighter and trainer is not who the trainer is or who the fighter is, because let's face it, at the end of the day, you better have the pony if you're going to run the race. Okay, you got to have a pony. You got to have a thoroughbred. You can't have a mule. I don't care how good of a jockey you are. You've got to have a thoroughbred. But relationships are so important, and what you can bring out of your fighter. So I can't really comment on the switch. We know Don has a lot of experience. Shane, I think his record speaks for itself and what he's done with some of the fighters. And I always like to measure a trainer's performance and his abilities based on what he does with not a superstar fighter, not a great fighter. I want to see how much a trainer is involved in getting more out of an ordinary fighter, and take him to a level where With anybody else, he would never have gotten to that level. That to me is the mark of a great trainer. You know, when you can overachieve with somebody that wouldn't have achieved that under anybody else. So I'm surprised that, you know, because I know Shane has a great reputation. We can't speak on what happened internally or what went on. So I don't know. I mean, I think the important thing, as it speaks for Dubois, is what does he feel good with, and not you have to think that whatever he feels good with will bring out the best in him on the night.
What is the feeling within yourself and amongst the team about Dubois as an opponent and as a fighter? Again, look, over here in the UK, we see the greatness of Usyk, and we say this is a tough task for Daniel to surmount him on the night. But what about the stance of the team for when you look at Dubois as a fighter?
I think I want to answer this way. And I think we have seen enough of Usyk in the past and understand what a devoted man he is. And I'm not just talking about boxing-wise. I'm talking him as a person, his beliefs, his strength of character. I think it's fair to say that there's not a big ego that you see from him. There's a confidence, there's a belief, but there's not an ego, and he doesn't put himself above anybody else. So I'm telling you right now, you know, he is not. Dubois has garnished the 1,000% respect from Usyk, and Usyk has prepared accordingly, as he would, Ayman, if he was fighting you. You know, this is not because of you, but because of him, because of who he is. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with Dubois. It's what he is as a man. And he will never underestimate or not take seriously the opponent that he has in front of him. Never.
And one of the things that you'll be looking to guard against specifically and will be looking out for is the potential for cuts. You gave me a great anecdote on regarding the last time a big cut came that you had to face and the team had to face when Usyk took on Joshua. Can you just kind of tell me, how is the skin? How is there any chance of that happening again? And you know, in terms of that kind of reoccurring on the fight.
It's a fight with no headgear. You know, it can happen at any time. You know, that cut that happened with Joshua was the first one that happened in my time with Usyk. He's had a few little burns, skin burns, stuff, but never had a cut. That was the first one we dealt with. There's always a chance that something like that happens, and you know, you're just prepared for it, and you hope that it doesn't happen. But you know, you come to the fight ready and prepared. Sometimes, you know, the guys laugh at me by how much stuff I carry to the fight, and I've got a big pack sack of stuff and towels and all kinds of stuff with me, you know. And in fairness, most of the time I never use half or 3/4 of what I bring, but you have to be prepared for the time that something does happen and that you'll need the things that you have. And hopefully I never do, but you bring them anyways, and you just have to be prepared. That's the only thing I can really do, Ayman. What can I do more?
We'll jump back to the heavyweights in a second, but I was planning to drop you a text a week or so before and say, Russ, I'm going to be doing Beterbiev Smith. I can't wait to see you. And then unfortunately for mainly both fighters, really not for myself, the fight is now off and rescheduled. How is Arthur, and how is, of course, Callum too?
Well, I think I will be seeing Callum next week because I'll be in the UK with Beefy as he prepares for the rematch against Eubank. So I'll see him. Since I've been here for going over 2 weeks, so I haven't seen Beterbiev, and I wasn't involved in the camp because, like I told you, I mean, I may have told you or not, but I disqualified myself from working either fighter's corner, either Smith or Beterbiev. I didn't involve myself in the camp at all. I didn't have any contact with anybody. I saw Callum and Arthur at the press conference when they came to Quebec City. You know, I saw both of them and chatted with them both. But that's about it. You know, it's a very difficult fight for me. I can't remember being ever involved in a fight of this magnitude in which I had two of my prized possessions facing each other. You know, and it's a little hurtful for me. You know, it's a little painful, and it's not comfortable at all to be in that situation. And I don't wish bad on either guy. I wish the best for either one, and you can't have the best for either one. Someone's going to get beat, and it's going to hurt either way. And I have a lot of respect for both those guys. To me, they are the way boxers and boxing should be conducted. You know, as is Usyk. You know, I think that part of we're missing, I think, a lot of that in boxing today, because they're gifted and they're talented and they do their talking in the ring and they perform to the best that they can. So I can't answer you the question. I don't know what it was like, but you know, it's certainly going to be a fight between two great competitors.
Well, speaking of conduct, the British boxing fans and maybe the world boxing fans have been questioning maybe the conduct of Tyson Fury in terms of taking on Francis Ngannou in what might be a fight or an exhibition. Do you share the sense of frustration from boxing fans that Tyson Fury isn't taking on someone in the WBC rankings defending his heavyweight title?
I'm at a loss to understand boxing anymore, Ayman. It's reached points of levels of absolute insanity that if you'd have predicted this 20 years ago, they'd have thrown you out of the sport. You know, it's laughable what's going on. The influencer boxing, the porn star boxing, everybody can get a license. You know, there's no government control, at least not in the UK. Anybody can do whatever they want, and it's become a free-for-all. And I think that that's laughable now, and that the heavyweight champion of the world can keep his title and fight Francis Ngannou regardless of the magnitude of the fight. Forget that. You can make any you could make any fight between two people who are not even boxers can be a big ticket selling event. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the heavyweight champion of the world who has refused and gone out of his way, not because of fear, but for whatever other reason, has gone out of his way to avoid fighting the other guy in Usyk, who's got 3 belts, that you as the champion would want. That would be the sole objective of your career, is to fight the other champion, not fight somebody who's never fought before, regardless of how much money it makes. Because if that's what you're in it for, no problem. You see, this is the part that bothers me. If Tyson Fury wanted to fight Ngannou because of the event, then go ahead and do it, and let somebody else fight Usyk for the WBC title, because Usyk wants to be the champion of the world uncontested, like he was at cruiserweight, undisputed. The fact that you want to fight Ngannou and not Usyk is fine, but leave the title alone. You can't keep holding on the title and fighting a guy who hasn't had a professional boxing contest, and you still have the title and you still call yourself the champion. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, in my brain is short-circuiting when I try to process that information, that it just doesn't make sense. And the fact that he's allowed to do it is even more insanity. Yes, the event will be big. Of course, it's a train wreck. People would want to see it. Of course, you want to see what's going to happen in there. You want to see somebody from another sport, the same way that McGregor and Mayweather did their nonsense, you know. But you're the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. You're the champion of the world. The guy you should be fighting is the other champion, not somebody who's never fought. Think about that. Think of where you're going. You're not fighting the champion. You're fighting somebody who has 0 professional boxing matches. 0. How does that make sense?
I don't have the answers for you, but I wonder if you have the answer for this question. Do you, in our discussion...
Well, you're of no help, are you? You ask me a question, I answer. I ask you a question, you got no answer for me.
my apologies. But do you, in our conversation right now, do you, when you speak about Tyson Fury, are you confident that a fight in the future will happen between Fury and Usyk, the consensus best in the division, for the undisputed titles?
I would like to think it will, but I have the same feeling. I thought the same thing about Spence and Crawford. I thought that this deliberated far too long before it happened. Pacquiao and Mayweather deliberated far too long before it happened. So I don't want to say no, it will never happen, but I just can only speak on the present, in that there has been opportunities to make this happen, and it has clearly been avoided. It has clearly been roadblocked, as on the Fury side as best as possible. Because if you wanted to make the fight, you would have made the fight. Simple as that. There's no forget about, but he said it, then negotiate it and make it happen. You have all the ingredients to make it happen. Usyk was more than accommodating on all the conditions put forth, and you still didn't want to make it happen. So will it happen? Maybe it will. Maybe they're waiting till Usyk reaches, 49 years old, and then they'll make it happen. I don't know, but it could have happened now, and it hasn't. And that's been a robbery to the boxing world. It's been a robbery to the boxing public. It's been a robbery of history that we would have a chance to have a unified champion between two really great fighters that should happen. Instead, we fight a guy who doesn't have a fight. I don't care how good he is in another sport. He hasn't had a professional boxing match. And this is what makes the commissions and the associations laughable that this is allowed to happen. Because I'll tell you what, you go ahead and be a promoter, put on a show, take one of your fighters who has 20 professional fights and put him in and submit the contest, an 8-round fight to the commission against a guy who's had 0 fights. They will never accept that fight. Mm-hmm. So how are you accepting this fight? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's ridiculous insanity that this is allowed to go on like this, and that boxing has been reduced to this. And you wonder why media or the John Q public laugh at boxing and say what a joke it is. We're making it a joke. There are our own people inside the sport. The heavyweight champion of the world, the athletic commissions, the governing bodies are making it a joke. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, you have Beterbiev and Smith going at it the first opportunity they had to make that fight, they make it happen. Make it happen. There was no problem. They make it happen. You want to make it happen, you'll make it happen.
Appreciate your thorough answer there. Whilst there is a fire lit under you, I'd like to move on to something that is also disappointing right now, that being the situation regarding Dillian Whyte, who's tested positive for performance-enhancing substances. I just wonder what your thoughts were when you read that news about Dillian, who's now looking to clear his name if he can.
I love Derek Chisora. Huh? You got to love Derek Chisora and what he said. I have my thoughts on Dillian. You know what happened in the Rivas fight. We know that he tested positive in the Rivas fight and was still awarded the decision, and the decision was not reversed, and he was continued to carry along, no problem. And we still haven't seen a B sample from that. So I don't care. I'm done with his bullshit. If people can't recognize what he has done already and what he is, then you don't know anything about boxing. And I think that in general, not Dillian, in general, boxing has to take a stand now. This is where we're starting to get to the point of no return on how we want to deal with drug cheats. Mm-hmm. And I find it, like I said earlier, when I joked to you about how training camp is, everybody says they have a great training camp. Everybody who has tested positive always has said, I don't remember. It wasn't me. I didn't know. No, how could I know? I didn't know. I'm sick of it. And boxing is going to have to take a stand, because what's going to happen is that it's going to continue to happen without consequence. Promoters are going to continue to use fighters who have tested positive. Athletic commissions are going to allow fighters to continue boxing. Sanctioning bodies are not suspending these guys or taking them out, or if they do, it's for 3 months, 6 months, a ridiculous amount of time, laughable. And they're going to continue to do this. And when you try to impose something more severe and more strict, everyone's going to look at the precedents that happened before and say, no, you gave this guy this much, this guy, how come you're giving me more? Why am I the scapegoat for the world? And I feel that that's where boxing is going now. I think a clear set of guidelines has to be drawn up, in which all athletic commissions will respect, in which the governing bodies will respect. Think about this, Ayman. If you don't subscribe to and I'll use this as an example, the WBC Clean Boxing Program, if you don't subscribe to that, they will remove you from their rankings, correct? Hmm. But if you subscribe to the program and test positive, they'll still keep you in the rankings until something is dealt out, until there's a suspension, until something happens. They'll still keep you in the rankings. So you're not in the rank. They'll drop you from the rankings if you haven't tested positive, but you don't subscribe to the program, but you stay in the rankings if you pop positive and you're enrolled in the program. So I think we have to change how we look at this. And it's all about the money, all about the money. No one wants to make the commitment to change this and to say, that's it, you're banned. Maybe, you know what could eventually happen? You know, like Derek Chisora talked about the 10-year ban.
Yeah.
It could happen that an innocent fighter will get that. It could happen. You know, I mean, that could happen. So do we sacrifice the one guy that might slip through, you know, and is unable to prove his innocence for all the others that do get caught, and you say out, 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 and send that message to everybody that it's not going to be tolerated anymore. But right now, we've tolerated it with Fury, Dillian Whyte, Canelo. The list goes on and on of people who have tested positive and are still at the top of the game and still fighting for belts and championships and millions of dollars. Something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Focusing on what's left, that was Anthony Joshua left scrambling to find, or his team to find an opponent. They've settled on Robert Helenius. Not really the best kind of setup for a potential Deontay Wilder fight if it's going to happen in December or January, right?
Well, it's not a question of a setup. I mean, that's not the point. It's for an 8-round fighter. It's never good to change opponents the week before the fight. You know, like that's not healthy. And if you remember, there's going to be flashbacks to Joshua. You know, the last time there was an opponent switch when Jarrell Miller failed his drug test, and then he was replaced with Andy Ruiz. And you know that, I mean, you went from two diametrically opposed style of fighters, you know, and look what happened. But I think for Matchroom, for Eddie, for the public, for the event, for British boxing, you go from a local matchup between Dillian and Anthony Joshua, which has some meat to it, which has an interest in Britain, you know, and it's a great fight to make, to this, it's a letdown, because what is it's a no-win situation for poor Anthony Joshua. If he doesn't blast Helenius out or completely dominate him in a brutal fashion, they're going to say, well, he looked terrible. There's no way he ends up looking good in this unless it's complete destruction. And that's a lot of pressure for the guy that he shouldn't have to be put under while he was preparing mentally to face Dillian Whyte and ready to go to war with Dillian Whyte. So I think it's just what Dillian has done, you know, hurts all of British boxing, world boxing, hurts the promotion, hurts the fan base. It's just bad. And, you know, it's put Joshua under pressure. It's put his team under pressure. It's forced Matchroom to reevaluate how they're going to promote the fight, how they're going to do this, you know, to try to sell this to the media, make it credible. It just makes it so bloody hard for everybody to do what they want to do after you're coming off. You know, you're getting a sizzling steak, boy. You're getting a big juicy steak, and now you get a slice of ham. You know, like it's not exactly what you were looking for. You know.
Final topic of discussion, and I'll let you crack on with your important work, that being Liam Smith taking on Chris Eubank Jr. in a rematch. We'll see you in the UK very soon. I just wonder, look, before we get into the actual fight, I'm really enjoying the clash of personalities, and I wonder if you feel maybe after a few years when this is all settled down, Liam will kind of look at this as a real opportunity to have had a real proper rival who could go toe to toe with him, at least outside the ring, elevate both fighters, you know, their profiles, and you know, really had kind of capitalize on that spotlight.
I was for the first fight. I thought that was great for the first fight, and I think that, you know, especially in my hometown in Montreal, very similar to the UK in that local rivalries are the best, right? Like, you know, it's sometimes more important to be champion of your country or champion of your city than it is sometimes to be champion of the world, you know, in terms of how many people come out to support that. So I loved it in the first fight. I have to say I'm I'm a little bit disappointed in the way Eubank has conducted himself and his attitude going into the second fight. You know, he's trying so hard to try to sell that. He's trying so hard to talk himself into the fact that he didn't get knocked senseless in the fourth round, you know, in which he never expected that. And you know, I don't think he's made peace with it himself. I don't think that he's made peace. I think he was as stunned and shocked as everyone, you know, when that happened. He firmly believed that could never happen to him, and it happened. And I think you know, had he taken that approach and that had been his mantra going forward, that, you know what, you were a great fighter that night. You really surprised me. I never thought, you know, I said I have 50% of you would be in. If he said 50% would be enough to beat Liam Smith, you know, I said, nah, man, I'm going to need my 100%, and I'm going to get ready because I know how good you are. I would have respected that a lot more than blowing it off as if, you know, that was lucky. You got lucky. You know, you're giving no credit to this guy. Yo, you're starting to be delusional now. You know, like, you're really not accepting reality. You know, this is black. This is black. Okay, really? It's not. It's white. Look, it's white. So yeah, I think a little delusion is set in there.
Now, with the loss came a change. He's now removed himself from Roy Jones Jr. and now taken on the stewardship of Brian McIntyre, of course, most famed for his work with Terence Crawford. A good fit, you feel, maybe, Russ, here for Chris Eubank Jr.?
I don't know. Roy is my friend, and I know things, you know, about this situation, which, you know, I'm not going to speak about here. Do what you want. When the bell rings, Bomack's walking down the steps. You're in the ring, and Liam Smith is in the ring. And I know what Liam's got, and I know the team Liam's got behind him. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a big difference when that bell rings. And even when it rings to end the round, and you come back to the corner and sit, Liam comes back. He knows exactly what's going on in the corner when he comes back. He's comfortable. He comes back. That's not going to be the case. This is going to be the first time he walks back to not having Roy there and having a complete stranger there. Big difference, bro. Big difference.
And what about for Liam? Look, he'll look to dispense of his current focus in Chris Eubank Jr. But what's on the horizon for him? What opportunity would you like to see him get outside of Chris Eubank Jr.?
Don't know. Don't care right now. Don't know. Don't care. All I want is another dominating, pulverizing performance out of him against Eubank. That's all I care about. That's all I cared about in the first fight.
Russ, we'll leave that there. Real good, comprehensive chat with yourself. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you in the UK. Thank you for speaking to Seconds Out, so we'll catch up very, very soon.
Will you be in Manchester?
Not certain just yet.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, I hope I do see you there. I'll be there, and thanks for having me. And next time I ask you questions, I wish you'd have answers, because I give you answers.
I'm here to pick your brain, not the other way around.
No. But if I ask you a question, you got to give me what your feel is. You got to let me know what's happening, you know. So I hope I ask the right questions to you.
If I'm in Manchester, we'll do that.
Sounds good, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you.